Pune College of Pharmacy, Bharati Vidyapeeth University. He will be chairing the session. Sir has completed his graduation and post-graduation from University of Pune and Goa University respectively. He has published more than 30 research publications, presented more than 40 poster presentations, and has authored more than 10 pharmaceutical books. He is also a life member of APTI and member of CRS Indian chapter. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jilu, for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, one and all. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be universities, Pune College of Pharmacy, I, Dr. Satish Mandik, welcome Dr. Shashank Shah to the 2 weeks AICT sponsored QIP program on medication safety in clinical practice. It's my honor to introduce to the great surgeon, Dr. Shashank Shah. Dr. Shashank Shah is the founder director at Lapro Obesity Center, Pune, India, a center for comprehensive treatment for obesity and related metabolic diseases and treatment center for laparoscopic and bariatric surgery. Dr. Shashank Shah has performed more than 40,000 general laparoscopic and bariatric procedures. He is a postgraduate teacher for Diploma of National Board, that is DNB, for General Surgery at Pune Hospital and Research Center, and a founder member of Association of Minimal Access Surgeons of India, that is AMASI. He is also PhD guide for Symbiosis University and course director for bariatric trainings for School of Medicine at Boston University, USA. Dr. Shashank Shah is also PG guide for MUHS University. He is the only Indian to be invited as a faculty for all 4 international consensus summit for sleeve gastrectomy, which was held at New York from 2009 to 2012. Dr. Shashank Shah worked as a consultant and a surgeon at various renowned hospitals. Name a few: KM Hospital, Pune Hospital, Ruby Hall Clinic, Wokhod, Hiranandani, Fortis Hospital, Hinduja, Lilavati, and many more. On his credit, there are 19 publications in laparoscopy department and 5 book chapters. He has also presented more than 75 presentations in various topics related to the obesity, bariatric surgery, and laparoscopic, etc. With this introduction, now I request Shashank Shah sir to deliver his talk on physiology of obesity and role of pharmacotherapy. Welcome, sir.
First of all, very good afternoon, and let me thank all of you, and let me wish good health to each one of you. And let me start sharing my screen. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I am going to talk about physiology of obesity, and then probably you will understand more about pharmacotherapy of obesity. So now it's almost more than 40,000 general surgeries, more than 7 to 8,000 bariatric surgeries in last 28 years. And what I'm learned, I am going to elaborate, and you will find it very different from our conventional thinking. These are 2 real brothers, and same mother, same love, same environment, same food offered to everyone. One is very thin and one is very obese. And this is typically the genetics, the metabolism, and various other factors because of which one has unfortunately become obese. Why does this happen and how do we treat is very interesting to understand. This was only a 7-month boy and he was 25 kg. And his mother came to me that he is eating almost an adult meal. He continuously eats, and then we found that he had leptin deficiency. That means hunger, feeling of fullness, everything is dependent on certain hormones, and any analogs or antidotes of those hormones will be pharmacotherapy of obesity. And that is what I want to elaborate. Now, this is how it happens. When food goes into your stomach, the curvature of the stomach gets stimulated, secretes certain hormone called ghrelin, which is a hunger hormone. Whenever food touches this curvature, the hunger hormone level goes down and the person feels full. If this level doesn't go down, person can keep on eating more and more, and that is why we see one person eating maybe 2 slices of pizza and the other maybe eating full pizza, and this hormone decides the amount of food. Then food passes into the duodenum and jejunum, and then the jejunal and duodenal mucosa start getting stimulated and they secrete then again certain hormones like cholecystokinin, secretin. They stimulate pancreas and liver to secrete enzymes, and that is how digestion occurs. Then food goes into mid-jejunum, and each part secretes certain hormones, and then it goes to the last part of intestine. But the last part of intestine again has certain hormonal secretion, which is called GLP-1. GLP-1 and PYY, polypeptide YY. Both these hormones have an action of negative feedback to the brain to stop eating. The patient feels full. If there is deficiency of GLP-1 or PYY, which is seen in Indian obese and diabetic patients, they will eat more, their hunger will be more, their metabolism will be slower, and they will gain very easily or become diabetic. Now I'm going to take you through some examples and then to pharmacotherapy. Now, initially, the first operation which was done was by Mason, who thought that if the stomach is very small, a person would not be able to eat. So he cut the stomach into a horizontal small stomach and was expecting that the patients will lose weight. But none of those patients lost weight. Then he got frustrated, but he still continued to convert the stomach into a vertical stomach. And then the size of both these stomach pouches were same. But those with a vertical stomach only lost weight. Those with a horizontal stomach did not lose weight. And that is why whenever surgery is intended for weight loss, then the stomach is divided vertically. And when it is not intended for weight loss, like tumors, ulcers, any other reason, then stomach is divided horizontally. And the intention is the curvature of the stomach should be preserved if you want the weight to be gained or maintained. The curvature should be excluded. And this is where the metabolic actions were understood. And then the pharmacotherapy was designed based on these metabolic actions. Now, this is a diagram of a vertical gastrectomy. All the hormone secreting part of the stomach is removed. So stimulus to the brain becomes less, the hunger is less, the satiety is more, and eventually, because the size is small, patient eats less, feels full, and then gets satiety. Now, this is another interesting explanation. This is how food comes into the stomach, then goes into the duodenum where GIP is secreted, moves down to the ileum and cecum where GLP-1 is secreted. Now, say for example, GLP-1 is in normal or in excess amount, suppresses your appetite, stimulates the hunger center in the brain to reduce your appetite. Then, if you create a shortcut to the last part of intestine, the GLP-1 will rapidly increase the moment a person eats, and this hunger, excess hunger, craving will disappear. We will talk about other actions of GLP-1 when we go to pharmacotherapy, but I am going to show you this experiment. In this experiment, there was a shortcut made from duodenum to the last part of intestine. You can see the size of the stomach is same. Nothing was done to the stomach. Before this shortcut, if the patient could eat one full meal, just with this shortcut, patient could start feeling full in just 1/4 of the meal. That is a direct explanation how GLP-1 works on restricting intake, delaying gastric emptying, and thereby increasing your metabolism and inducing weight loss. And this is going to be one important drug which will evolve in future and will be part of pharmacotherapy for obesity. This is one experiment done from our unit where we gave normal meals to thin people, obese people, and we found that in thin people, the food moves through the small bowel faster. And in obese people, the movement was much slower. Either it is because of the motility or movement, or it was because of variable length. And then we decided to study. Now I am going to, and these are various hormones secreted by fat, stomach, and the various centers in the brain. All the medications probably will work on ghrelin or will be work on increasing GLP-1 or reducing leptin or working like insulin, or they will have direct action on the hypothalamus or the center of hunger and satiety. In short, this is how pharmacotherapy of obesity will be designed, and in addition to this, there will be some intestinal factor which we'll look at. So this was one award, India Book of Award and World Book of Award. But what is interesting is I'm going to show this lady was 300 kg. She came to us, we did a diagnostic laparoscopy. Now we were wondering what is it because of which she is so huge. You can see her totally change. And we found that her intestinal length was much, much longer, almost 3 times that of a normal person. This is how she has become today. Her intestinal length was 3 times longer. That means food moved very slowly. Every particle was absorbed, but what is more important is the GLP-1 was never stimulated in time because of the longer length. And then we shortened the mesentery by creating a shortcut between stomach and jejunum. And you can see the transformation, same lifestyle, same habit. She lost 215 kilograms in 5 years and is maintained, and that this has become a world record, and that is how we got the award. But more interesting is her altered physiology in the body. It is not only to treat obesity. I am going to talk to you about other aspects. In general, if the body mass index is 25 to 28, that means a person is 8 kg, 9 kg overweight, one can offer diet, changes, lifestyle changes, exercise. Once the BMI goes to 28 to 32, that means 10 to 12 kg excess, that is where pharmacotherapy can be added to all these, or some endoscopic therapy. However, once the BMI goes above 32, that is excess of 20 kg or more, then bariatric surgery plus pharmacotherapy becomes the mainstay. I am not saying only bariatric surgery because the genetics is there, body's compensatory mechanisms exist. So bariatric surgery and pharmacotherapy. So you can see here, apart from the initial part, pharmacotherapy forms a part of management of obesity beyond a BMI of 27 all throughout. Actually, the treatment of obesity is losing weight, but it is relieving joint pain, treating infertility, breathlessness, snoring, urine incontinence, treating varicose ulcers, fatty liver, psychological comorbidity. And for each of this comorbidity, you will need to add some medication, some drug. So pharmacotherapy, in addition to weight loss, is also necessary. And I'll give you some examples. This is a lady with severe osteoarthritis because of purely weight. She was treated obviously with vitamin D, calcium supplementation, and painkillers. These are 3 medications to make her more ambulatory and improve her osteoarthritis or osteoporosis. You can see the change with bariatric surgery. All her joints have become normal without any orthopedic treatment. But this is purely weight related. But even though she has come to a near normal weight, maintaining her vitamin D, her calcium, her magnesium is important, and that forms a part forms a part of pharmacotherapy in the form of nutritional supplementation. This is the young boy who was 200 kg and you can see prominent gynecomastia. He had deficiency of testosterone. So correction of testosterone because fat converts male hormone into female hormone and the environment is less testosterone. And that is why then you can see central obesity or female-like adiposity. In these patients, even testosterone levels could be treated and they could be treated with some testosterone supplementation. Urine incontinence. If a lady has prominent belly, previous history of pregnancy, the intra-abdominal pressure creates a pressure on the bladder, on the weakest valve, and there could be urine incontinence. You could give medications to improve tone of the bladder, improve the contraction of the sphincter, but weight loss and those medications will relieve that lady of incontinence. Needless to say, polycystic ovarian disease would need metformin, maybe oral contraceptive pills, and they have hyperinsulinism. And you can see this lady treated. So bariatric surgery actually has become a part of the treatment of infertility and polycystic ovarian disease because it is going to reverse the androgenic environment in a female. It is going to reduce insulin resistance. It is going to correct PCOD. So pharmacotherapy can still be offered after weight loss and maintain the resolution of PCOD. This is another example where a lady had gestational diabetes, hypertension, and she was on all those medications, but still had repeated abortions. And in the middle picture, you can see her after bariatric surgery, hypertension, diabetes, everything resolved, and then the pregnancy was without any disease. And this is the importance of management of obesity. And I believe all of you, as pharmacists, will have definitely major role in treatment of obesity and diabetes because they are the pandemics in today's time. This is a lady with type 2 diabetes, obesity-induced type 2 diabetes. And there are many newer medications for type 2 diabetes which can improve glycemia, but it can induce weight loss. This is the surgical treatment, but I'm going to focus more on medications which can induce weight loss. This is similar example. Another part of treatment which in today's era is treatment of NASH or fatty liver disease. Many medications are being tried, you can read about them, but grossly you can see the transverse diameter of the patient correlates with the size of liver. This is the laparoscopy picture which shows that almost entirely 2 feet or 2.5 feet diameter was occupied with liver. And here I don't need to tell you that the fatty liver has resolved because its size has reduced from almost 2.5 feet to 1.5 feet. So this fatty liver has resolved. But pharmacotherapy for fatty liver is also important to be continued after this. This is male infertility. Even male infertility management, there will be some pharmacotherapy and aggressive weight loss. Needless to say, this patient would have severe testosterone deficiency. But even supplementation with testosterone or medications like sildenafil will not help him because there is pseudo hypogonadism. The gonads will be drawn inside because excess fat deposit. Patients with diabetes, patients with obesity many times complain of sexual dysfunction and they may need pharmacotherapy for the same. There are different types of procedures, endoscopy to surgical, and during each one for maintenance, pharmacotherapy is important. This is one lady who has maintained almost for 14-15 years remission of diabetes, but the secret is surgery followed by pharmacotherapy, and those vigilance and the weight loss can be maintained over long duration. Initially, if you look at this pyramid, it was diet, physical activity, lifestyle medication. Now the part of pharmacotherapy has broadened, and then comes surgery. And we will focus more on what are the drugs available for weight loss. Do these drug effect change after bariatric surgery? Does drug therapy for weight regain help? How much does it help? Does it prevent recurrence? What is the evidence and what is the experience? Now, these were the drugs which were being used over years. Pentolamine and appetite suppressant, anorectic, was used. It is approved in US but not approved in India. Orlistat is approved worldwide. It's a pancreatic lipase inhibitor which inhibits fat absorption in the intestine, and this is available in India. Pelvic or lorcaserin was being used but is banned. Pendimetrazine, appetite suppressant. Methamphetamine, it is also not being used. There are all these drugs, you can see majority of them have action on the central nervous system. Sibutramine was anorectic, but it was withdrawn in US market due to increased heart rate. So there are risks on heart, risks on behavior because it is the action. Now I'm coming to a drug which is phentermine and topiramate, known as Qsimia, which has shown the best weight loss in pharmacotherapy. Combination of anorectic appetite suppressant, and even though the exact action is not known, both of them are known to be complementary. Bupropion and naltrexone together, medication known as available as Contrave, not yet available in India. It increases metabolism, suppresses appetite, and affects central reward center, that is the hedonic drive, which is a proposed mechanism. Liraglutide is the next drug, which is a GLP-1 agonist. We'll focus on that more. It is available in the US as Saxenda in the dose of 3 milligrams for weight loss. However, in India, it is still not approved for weight loss in a patient without diabetes, but it can be used for weight loss in a patient with diabetes. There are many newer anti-diabetic drugs with additional weight loss properties. Metformin is known to everyone. It is weight neutral, but it can induce weight loss in some people. The interesting group is SGLT2 inhibitors. They inhibit SGLT2 receptor in the kidney and increase secretion of glucose in the urine, which is renal glycosuria. So reabsorption of glucose from kidneys is minimized and urine is passed, and therefore the person loses 300 to 400 calories every day through urine, loses weight, and his glycemia improves. And then are GLP-1 receptor agonists. The advantage of these is they have long-term cardiac and renal protection, which is proven. And that is how these therapies are being changed. There are definitely certain experiments being done to use these medications for as a pharmacotherapy of obesity, but it is in the phase of clinical trial. Coming to orlistat. You can see here orlistat attaches itself to pancreatic lipase. This is the easiest and the simplest medication. It can be used anywhere, but the major effect is it minimizes fat absorption. So the weight loss is modest. The side effects are obviously there is steatorrhea. The undigested oil will pass in the stool. The leakage of oily stools, diarrhea. There could be flatulence and sometimes pain. Coming to the most effective medication, phentermine, which is a sympathomimetic amine, which has an anorectic action, and topiramate used commonly as an anti-epileptic drug or drug to treat migraine, increases satiety, and the combination is known to be more effective. The side effects are dizziness, insomnia, constipation, increase in heart rate. The other side effects are mentioned here, they should be aware, but not many side effects are seen. Apart from this, in lower doses, as we start increasing the doses, the side effects become more aggressive. Lorcaserin, probably all of you are aware, we were very happy that we've got a new drug for obesity, but it got banned because of serious side effects. Contrave, even though not available in India, this is used in US. Naltrexone hydrochloride and bupropion hydrochloride together. Naltrexone is an opioid receptor blocker used to treat alcohol or opioid addiction. So if taking opioids or patient is undergoing the addiction program has a high pressure, that there should be caution or this drug should not be used. Bupropion is a dopamine agonist, a relatively weak inhibitor of the neuronal reuptake of dopamine and norepinephrine. So it thereby has central appetite suppression, and it also is known to increase the metabolic rate. These are the side effects: nausea, vomiting, constipation, headache, insomnia, seizures, and suicidal tendencies. So all these pharmacotherapeutic medication for weight loss many times get banned because the action is on the central nervous system. The center for metabolism, hunger, satiety is in the hypothalamus. Any drug which has central action will have some side effects on the central nervous system. GLP-1 receptor agonist, and this is one of the most effective medication. Available in India as Victoza for treatment of diabetes. The dose can start right from zero point 0.6 to 1.2 to 1.8 up to 3 milligram. Admitters, only thing it has to be administered subcutaneously daily. GLP-1 is known to delay gastric emptying. It is known to stimulate pancreas to secrete more insulin. It suppresses appetite centrally and it improves metabolism. Because it stimulates pancreas, the pancreatic insulin secretion is improved and it suppresses glucagon. And therefore, again, the action of insulin improves. So this can be used for treatment of obesity and diabetes together. And these are various reasons where this medication would have effects. Trulicity, which is available as a once a week GLP-1 receptor agonist, the drug is dulaglutide. It is less effective, but the dose can be 0.75 to 1.5. I do not want you to focus on this slide or the other part because you will get it in your textbook. So what is new is what I want to focus. Once a week, GLP-1 receptor agonist, dose is 0.75 or 1.5, but the benefit is it is an injection is once a week. It is just like insulin. Unfortunately, these are still injectable, but oral GLP-1 analogs are like semaglutide are under clinical trial, and we hope that these medications will be oral and will be more effective. Weight loss from liraglutide is greater than all other medications. However, phentermine topiramate combination equally works well. Whenever we have an injectable therapy, number one, it is expensive. Number two, it is an injection. So there is a chance of discontinuation of medication. Compliance to medication, following up with nutritionist, lifestyle change, and maintenance dose of medications is mandatory for long-term management of obesity. These are some papers where even after bariatric surgery, adjuvant medications were used to improve long-term weight loss or to treat weight regain. So weight regain may be after surgery, weight regain may be after diet, weight regain may be after exercise, any attempt, endoscopic treatment, but when it comes to maintenance, only lifestyle may not be sufficient. And surgery is just an example that one may need to use pharmacotherapy to maintain weight loss. These are some research papers. Now, in our experience, what are the drugs available in India? Orlistat, topiramate, there are some other, I wouldn't say pharmaceutical, non-pharmacological agents, Garcinia, Holdinin, and maybe liraglutide can be used in obese patients, but it is called off-label. If the patient has diabetes, one can use orlistat, topiramate, GLP-1 receptor agonist, and SGLT2 inhibitors. These help improve their glycemia. If you treat them in time with medication, even diabetes can be prevented or it can be even reversed. Weight gain has to be treated, weight loss has to be accelerated, and weight loss has to be induced. In all these, pharmacotherapy has an important role. Even though I am a bariatric surgeon, I must tell you that I am dependent on pharmacotherapy for long-term results because the obesity is a very complex multifactorial disease of metabolism, hormones, genes, intestinal factors, intestinal mucosal capacity to absorb, get immunity, bile acids. and even intestinal microflora. So medications acting on all these, could be different medications are necessary to achieve weight loss. Just now, the available pharmacotherapy has capacity of weight loss almost only up to 5 to 7%. That with good compliance, and that is why in severe obesity we have to use bariatric surgery or endoscopic therapy, and then supplement with pharmacotherapy, because bariatric surgery still has some hormonal actions, GI based, intestinal based, which work on the central nervous system, but their genetics, the body's compensatory mechanism to regain, will need to be controlled by pharmacotherapy. Limitations on medications if they are not available in all countries. Long term, they are very expensive. Sometimes they are injectable. Some have drug interactions, so cannot be used. Cardiac mortality in many of them is not studied. Effect is short term, and there is rapid regain after interruption of the therapy. Some CNS side effects on from centrally acting drug. Efficacy of absorption and bioavailability is not studied after, not only after bariatric surgery, but different types of resection, accidental surgery, any other GI surgery would alter the absorption and pharmacodynamics, but that is not studied well. Interaction with other medications still need to be studied because the list of medications is vast. So in short, these are our patients. Many lives are transformed by pharmacotherapy, by medication, by lifestyle change, and by surgery. Just wanted to give you a brief overview of how physiology works, how an obesity expert or bariatric surgeon thinks, and what should a pharmacist know, and what will be the fields like obesity and diabetes and related medication which will be of interest in future. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'll keep it open for any more question answers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for your knowledge pack as well as the many case studies you discussed. In summary, you highlighted on physiology of stomach with hunger hormones. You focused on sleeve gastrectomy, Rubino procedure, and you also explained few case studies which you have handled. You also focused on pharmacotherapy of bariatric surgery. Sir also discussed about drugs used as appetite suppressant like brand name by Qsymia, Belvic, Contraya, Victoza, Saxenda, Trulicity, and all. You also discussed limitations of drugs. Now I request participants to unmute yourself and ask any queries, questions to the Dr. Shashank Shah sir. Or else you can type it into the chat box. Participants, you can ask the questions.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Thank you for the wonderful and factful talk, sir. This is the first talk actually we are addressing from our college and from our department. Thank you very much for that, first of all. Sir, I would like to know what will be the indication for the surgery, bariatric surgery. You have given us the algorithm on the basal metabolic rate, right? So BMR about 35. Sir, Indian community, you might be knowing that it is now turning towards more of, a kind of obesity. So in that case, even in the general population, we can see that there would be usually the BMR in between 32 to 35. That's very common nowadays, isn't it? And so that is why I wanted to know what exactly would be indicated a person for a surgery. And secondly, in case if the person is not having any comorbid conditions as such, so can that be also indicated in case of preventative measures? As a preventative measure, can it be undertaken?
Very interesting question. Thank you. Thank you. So, if anyone's BMI is about 32.5, we say 32.5 because morbid obesity in US, Europe, whites is defined as BMI more than 35 with comorbidities. But Indians, Asians have more fat and
Ah,
less of lean body mass. So they are called thin fat Indian. They may not look huge, but
yes, sir.
the consequences, this abnormal excess unwanted fat is like the largest endocrine organ.
Hmm.
It continues to generate diseases like heart disease, renal disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. If these diseases are progressive, they cannot be controlled, and the quality of life is affected. And available treatments like dietary intervention, exercise, pharmacotherapy has become ineffective, then it is incorrect to allow this to progress because everyone should be happy. A lady with infertility should conceive. Someone with sexual dysfunction should restore. Someone with destroyed joints cannot walk even after joint replacement. So weight loss in such people, actually it is a consideration for metabolic improvement. But the second question you asked was more interesting. If all the reports are normal,
Yes, sir.
actually that is a very interesting concept. Morbid obesity itself is defined as a disease. And that is because of many subclinical underlying disease conditions, which are progressive. And one should not wait till the patient gets diabetes or gets any of those comorbidities. All the available scientific data, long-term studies have shown that if the BMI is more than 35 with comorbidity or body mass index of more than 40, that person's best scientifically available treatment should be bariatric surgery. In Indians, the body mass index, normal body mass index is 18 to 22.9. That means
Yes,
those
sir.
who look thin.
Hmm.
23 to 25, maybe you can still put them into near normal weight or marginally overweight.
Overweight. Yeah.
BMI of 25 to 29, maybe no one, almost we hardly see anyone below 25.
Hmm.
So each and everyone has some grade of adiposity, excess fat in the body, but we don't measure. So ideally, the fat percentage needs to be measured by body composition or a DEXA. And if the fat percentage is more than 25%, then it is considered to be excess and maybe a seed for all these diseases. There is a question. So is
Yes.
it safe for diabetes patients to undergo bariatric surgery? Wow, that's a very interesting question. The American Diabetes Association has given us the best worldwide research award for surgical reversal of diabetes. Actually, it is safe and it is more indicated for patients with diabetes, where BMI is not the criteria. Anyone with a prominent belly or central obesity, with a good pancreatic function, progressive diabetes, someone may have neuropathy, someone may have retinopathy, blindness of eyes, or creatinine is increasing, or he has sexual dysfunction, or he needs to be switched over to insulin and doesn't want injectable therapy. Diabetes can be totally reversed. I'm saying reversed, I'm not saying cured. It can be reversed for almost 5 to 10 years. If this reversal remains for 5 to 10 years, the effect on comorbidities, complications, heart disease, affection of kidney gets, all these gets postponed by another 10 to 15 years. And that is why it is known to be life prolonging in such patients. Of course, now there are better medications, so we try medications first. If they are not tolerated, not acceptable, or if they don't work, then metabolic surgery for diabetes is the terminology which is approved by all endocrinologists, all diabetes associations in the world, and now it is a part of the algorithm of treatment of diabetes.
Sir, actually, I had one more question. This is regarding the safety of the drugs which are used, actually. Because you rightly mentioned that once this drug therapy is stopped, then usually there will be a huge spike in the weight gain. Sir, in that case, then is it not questionable? Because anyways, we have a lot of adverse effects with those drugs. That is one part. Second is you can't stop it. It means that you'll have to take it for comparatively longer period of time. So, what would be the status of this safety, and how has been your experience with the pharmacotherapy, sir?
That is also very important question. We have been using pharmacotherapy, maybe you can say, with newer medications for 5 years. But there is no data of all these medications used for more than 5 years. So a lifestyle change is mandatory, and because of all these limitations, just now surgery is the only long-term effective modality of weight loss. But for marginal weight loss, one can use medication, wean them off with a combination of lifestyle modification, the combination of caloric reduction, with a combination of activity. Unfortunately, the compliance to this is limited worldwide, and that is why pharmacotherapy still is useful to achieve some weight loss, but long-term maintenance is still a challenge because of side effects, because of cost, and because of drug interaction, and because of compliance or adherence to therapy. But we have to wait. At least hundreds of drugs have been tried, but it is very difficult to get FDA approval. It's a long process, and basically because they are centrally acting, some or the other central nervous system action comes in the way, and the approval becomes difficult. But I'm sure bariatric surgery, all these treatments give us new information about physiology, and newer molecules of pharmacotherapy could be invented. There's
Thank
no
you, sir.
question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. BMI versus waist hip ratio, which is more significant in assessing ability. So this is a very intelligent question.
Yeah.
BMI is used across the world as a gross measure. However, waist circumference is more commonly used in Indians because Indians are more prone for fat deposition inside the abdomen. That is why they are more insulin resistant. And that is why they are more prone for diabetes. But they respond very well to pharmacotherapy. If the BMI is very high, about 32, 33, then actually waist circumference is not that important because anyway they are morbidly obese, the waist circumference will be higher. But when the BMI is low, suppose someone has a BMI of 28, but his waist circumference is 120 centimeters, huge central obesity, he still falls into severe adiposity category. And we still call that severe obesity, even though not morbid obesity, and that person can be treated with the same guidelines as morbid obesity.
Thank you, sir. Over to Zilu.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insight, for putting insights on this topic. And I request everybody to put on their videos for a screenshot.
Perfect. Please send a copy of that screenshot to me.
Sure, sir.
Once again, I must thank all of you, and I see that all the students, good number, and they seem to be interested in knowing. And I believe future is going to be another pandemic of obesity, diabetes, and if this knowledge helps them improve their own lifestyle and their relatives and their family lifestyle, it is still a contribution.
Definitely, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shashank Shah, sir.
Yes, and they can still interact with me. They can still email to us or post questions. We'll be more than happy to reply to any of those questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I request all to join after 10 minutes for another session.
Thank you.